All right, let's get more on the changing landscape of the agriculture industry, and we cross to College Station in the U.S. state of Texas and speak to Julie Borlaug. She's the Associate Director for External Relations at the Norman E. Borlaug Institute for International Agriculture and a professor at Texas A&M University. Julie, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So Julie, lots of changes in farming. Over the past 60 years, the ratio of farmers has declined in every part of the world, from 35 to around 4% in developed nations, and from 81% to about 48% in developing countries. But Julie, our food needs have increased as populations have grown. So what's going on here? Is technology just filling this gap?
Well, I think a lot of our farmers here in the United States are larger farmers and able to use technology to their advantage. So therefore, we haven't had to have as many people stay into farming. Now, our biggest problem is across the board, whether we're in Africa or talking here in the United States, the average age of a farmer is 55. And that's really concerning to us because we do need to attract the next generation into agriculture. So I think the whole idea of innovation and technology in agriculture is a great way to bring more of the younger generation into agriculture.
Before we get into the demographics, Julie, agriculture globally currently employs over 50% of the workforce in Africa, 59% in Oceania, but only accounts for about 4% of direct employment in developed nations. So what are the implications and consequences of this trend?
Well, I think we need to realize, we all know by 2050 we're going to be over 9 billion people, but we're going to have to produce more food than we've ever produced before, but on the same amount of land, and to do it sustainably. So I think that is the biggest and most important trend when we look at this. We have smallholder farms in Africa that are primarily run by women, and we have to bring those type of farmers out of ancient farming techniques and allow them to utilize technology and innovation and the best seeds and the best inputs to actually move from beyond just being able to feed their family at best to actually being able to take their food to the market and become part of the supply chain of food. So I think, you have two very different agricultural systems when you talk about a developed world versus the non-developed or underdeveloped world. I think here in the United States, we're doing a great job. If you look at how few farmers we have, yes, a lot of those farms are large farms, but a lot of them are family farms that started out small. We do need all the small farms, that's important. But I think what we've been able to do and take advantage of the technology that has been developed in the last 20 to 40 years is the reason why we're still able to feed our population and the rest of the world.
Well, Julie, to your point earlier, the demographic of U.S. farmers and farmers in the developed world is changing. They're too old. We need to bring in younger farmers. There are fewer farms. Are we facing a workforce crisis for farming in developed nations? How do we continue?
Well, I think not only on farms are we facing a workforce crisis, but in agriculture as a whole, in the study of agriculture and researchers across the board, we really have a problem. And that's because I don't think people understand how the really depth and breadth of agriculture. It's not just being in the fields, it's everywhere, to the research lab, to precision agriculture, to drone technology, to satellites, to GPS. It's an exciting field to be in. And I think we in the industry need to promote that and actually show the next generation all the capabilities and opportunities there are in agriculture. And I think a lot of farmers are definitely do that, and a lot of companies are now opening themselves up to having tours and agritourism to actually show, especially young children, the opportunities that are in agriculture. But we do have to do a better job, and there is going to be... go ahead.
Well, much of the farm work here in the U.S. is done by Mexicans that are either here legally or illegally. What would a change in immigration policy mean for the U.S.?
I mean, I think that would have a huge toll on the workforce. We don't, it's hard work. They're willing to do it. We don't seem to have a lot of other people who are willing to do it. So I think when we come to immigration and talking about food security, whether it's here or abroad, we really need to take a really hard look and look at all the implications.
Well, what are efforts that governments are making to attract more people into farming, more people into agriculture, and particularly younger generations? Do you think governments in developed countries are doing enough?
No, I don't. And you know, some of them just haven't had the capability. There are extension programs in school and agricultural education. They just aren't able to do it, aren't able to fund it. Here in the United States, we've actually moved away from it, but now you're seeing a shift back to teaching elementary school kids about agriculture and the gardens that the schools have. So that way we're gaining support. Now the USDA has a huge outreach on next generation farmers, especially for women. So it's exciting to see what our government's doing. I think every government could do more, and I think it's important that they understand, you know, food security actually benefits the entire world because it actually creates a peaceful world that has less conflict. So not only here in the U.S. should we be worried about our children and our next generation, but we need to be worried about those in Asia and Africa and elsewhere.
Absolutely, food security is paramount. Thank you so much, Julie Borlaug, Associate Director for External Relations at the Norman E. Borlaug Institute for International Agriculture and Professor at Texas A&M University.